Hello and welcome to British English with me, Alexandre. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good night. Today we're gonna be talking about another news article from BBC News. We're talking about politics today. And before anything else, please, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel to share that content, that method that I've just created, that I've found out, which is reviewed as a really effective way to improve your English by learning pronunciation, connected speech, elision, alliteration, all the things that you've got to learn to improve your English and bring it to the next level. So we're gonna be doing this sort of exercise talking about this news article because you can learn all the things in just one go. So we're going to be talking about that news article from the BBC News, bbc.com/news/UK politics. Today we're talking about Sir Keir Starmer. So here we've got Keir Starmer defends Labour U-turn on £28 billion green spending. What does U-turn mean? Well, let's check that out. A U-turn, according to Oxford Learners' Dictionaries, a U-turn is a noun and it means a turn of 180 degrees that a vehicle makes so that it can move forwards in the opposite direction. So we might say to do or make a U-turn. So it's like you go back, you're going that way, but then you come back. You make something like that. U-turn. So again, Keir Starmer defends Labour. Labour is a political party in the UK. So Keir Starmer defends Labour U-turn on £28 billion green spending. This article has been published 1 hour ago. Okay, so now we're gonna be reviewing his speech. So stay with me, please, so we can identify the things that Sir Keir Starmer is saying.
Since we announced the Green Prosperity
Since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, again.
Since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, we've made a number of very important commitments.
We've made a number of very important commitments. So, since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, we've made a number of very important commitments. Again.
Since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, we've made a number of very important commitments
like the sort of
green steel.
The green steel.
It's like green steel, so
we can
continue to make steel in this country. Commitments like green steel, so we can continue.
So we can continue to make steel in this country. So we can continue to make steel in this country. Again.
Commitments like green steel, so we can continue to make steel in this country. Gigafactories.
Gigafactories. What does gigafactory mean? Let's check that out. What does gigafactory mean? According to Oxford Learners' Dictionaries, Gigafactory.
Gigafactory.
A large factory that makes very large numbers of batteries for electric vehicles. Okay, let's continue.
This country, gigafactories, so we can do the next
Gigafactories, so we can do the next generation of cars.
So we can do the next generation of cars.
So we can do the next generation of cars. Again.
Can do the next generation of cars. Can do the next generation of cars. Gigafactories, so we can do the next.
So we can do the next generation of cars.
Gigafactories, so we can do the next generation of cars. A national wealth fund, so that.
Again.
Generation of cars. A national wealth fund, so that we can.
A national wealth fund. A national wealth fund, so that we can have investment coming in. A national health fund, so that we can have investment coming in.
A national wealth fund. So
a national health fund. A national health fund.
A national wealth fund, so that we can have investment coming in for the jobs of the future.
For the jobs in the future. For the jobs in the future.
Have investment coming in for the jobs of the future. And GB Energy, which will be a...
And GB Energy.
The jobs of the future. And GB Energy, which will be a publicly owned company.
And GB Energy, which will be an publicly owned company. And GB, which will be a publicly owned company.
Energy, which will be a publicly owned company.
Which will be a publicly owned company.
So that where we invest.
So that where we invest. So that we invest.
Invested energy in this country, we own company. So that where we invest in energy.
So that where we invest in energy in this country.
In this country, we get the yield back for.
So that where we invest in this country, we'll get the yield back for taxpayers.
For taxpayers. All of that, we get the yield back for taxpayers.
We'll get the yield back to taxpayers.
All of that is
all of that.
Taxpayers. All of that is staying. So
is staying. It continues. It continues. All of that is staying. Again.
All of that is staying. So
all of that is staying. So
every single commitment that we've. All of that is staying. So every single.
So every single commitment. So every single commitment. Again.
That is staying. So every single commitment that we've made.
That we have made. But it says that we've made. This is the abbreviation for we have made. That we've made.
Every single commitment that we've made that is on the table is.
That's on the table. That's on the table. That is on the table. That is on the table. But it says that's on the table. It's all about pronunciation and abbreviation. That's on the table.
That is on the table is staying. The warm homes.
The warm homes.
The warm homes commitment is scaled down.
The warm homes commitment. The warm homes commitment is scaled.
That'll take a bit longer, but a commitment is scaled down. That'll take a bit longer, but everything else is exact. Commitment is scaled down. That'll take a bit longer.
And it will take a little bit longer. So it says that the warm homes commitment scaled. The homes commitment scaled, and it will take a little bit longer. Again.
Scale down, that'll take a bit longer. Homes commitment is
the warm homes commitment scaled, and it will take a little bit longer. Again.
Homes commitment is scaled down, that'll take a bit longer. That is on the table is staying. The warm homes commitment is scaled down. That'll take a bit longer.
And it will take, and it will take, and it will take, and it will take a little bit longer.
But everything else is exactly
But everything else
longer. But everything else is exactly as
is everything else is exactly as announced.
longer. But everything else is exactly as announced.
But everything else is exactly as announced.
What we're announcing today
What we're announcing today, again,
what we're announcing today
is that what we are announcing today,
what we're announcing today is that we won't
is that we won't, is that we will not, is that we will not, we will not, we won't
be making
be making further investments. We won't be making further investments.
We won't be making further investments, and therefore we won't
and therefore
we won't reach the 28 billion.
And therefore we won't reach the 28 billion. And therefore we won't reach the 28 billion.
And therefore we won't reach the 28 billion, which is effectively stood down.
Which has effectively stood down. Which has effectively stood down.
28 billion, which is effectively stood down.
Okay, let's go through that article again, but let's continue. Let's go with the full version of this video. Since we announced the Green Prosperity Plan, we've made a number of very important commitments like green steel, so we can continue to make steel in this country. Gigafactories, so we can do the next generation of cars. A national wealth fund, so we can have investment coming in for the jobs of the future. And GB Energy will be a publicly owned company, so that where we invest in energy in this country to get the yield back for taxpayers. All of that is staying. So every single commitment that we've made that's on the table is staying. The warm homes commitment scaled down, and it will take a little bit longer, but everything else is exactly
what we're announcing
today. What we're announcing today is that we won't be making further investment, and therefore we won't reach the 28 billion pounds, which has effectively stood down. That's something like that. Okay, let's now go through the article. Again, we're talking about Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer defends Labour U-turn on 28 billion pounds green spending. Okay, now let's go through the reading of the text. So here we have, this is just a reading of this news article. Okay, we're gonna go through the reading. Keir Starmer confirms Labour is dropping its 28 billion pounds spending commitment. This article has been published by Paul Seddon, BBC political reporter. So here we have, Sir Keir Starmer has insisted he had no choice but to ditch Labour's 28 billion pounds a year green investment pledge. He defended the U-turn by claiming it was no longer affordable because the Tories had crashed the economy. And he told the BBC Labour would still spend more than the Tories on green projects if it wins the election, and was committed to clean power by 2030. But Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Labour's signature economic policy was in tatters. What does that expression mean, in tatters? In tatters means torn into many places. It's not in a good situation. That's what happens when you don't have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you can't deliver any change for the country. He added that the Labour leader had a proven track record of U-turning on major issues. Labour's announcement represents a major scaling back of its plans to invest in green industries if it wins power, adding up around £4.7 billion extra per year. It follows weeks of confusion about the policy, which has come under growing Tory attacks ahead of the election, with Mr. Sunak saying the borrowing required would force Labour to put up taxes. The Labour leader said all the green plans announced so far by the party, including money for battery factories and clean steel production, would remain in place. But grants and loans to help families to better insulate their homes will now be scaled back. And the investment package will be part funded by taxes on energy firms' profits, rather than entirely by more government borrowing. The £28 billion spending pledge, first announced in 2021, had already been significantly watered down by Labour. Last June, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced the spending target would be met after 2027, instead of from the first year of a Labour government. The party included around £10 billion a year of planned government spending in its figure, making the extra spending commitment compared to the Conservatives more like £18 billion per year. Now, the party has confirmed that total extra investment compared to government plans will now be around £4.7 billion per year. It has also said it will be part funded by keeping its higher proposed windfall tax on the profits of energy companies in place throughout its first term in office if it wins power. The party now says it hopes this will raise £10.8 billion over 5 years to fund the plans, reducing the reliance on borrowing. Speaking to the BBC, Sir Keir said changing the spending plans was perfectly sensible, adding it would be irresponsible to ignore the economic situation. I can't ignore the fact the Conservatives have done huge damage to the economy, he added. Labour has insisted the rollback is necessary to allow the party to meet its spending rules, which say that has to be fallen as a share of the size of the economy in 5 years. Speaking to the BBC, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves said the Conservatives would be leaving a bleak inheritance and that she would not make any apologies for ensuring Labour's plans were fully funded. However, the move to ditch the spending promise was criticised by left-wing campaign group Momentum and Unite, Labour's biggest union backer. This latest Starmer U-turn represents yet another capitulation to right-wing interests, a Momentum spokesperson said. United leader Sharon Graham said the Labour movement has to stand up to the Conservatives' false accusations of a fiscal irresponsibility. Caladenia, co-leader of the Green Party, said, "This is a massive backward step for the climate, for the economy, and for good quality jobs. Where does this leave Labour's plans? The consequences of Labour scaling back its green spending are hard to assess, as the party had never set out in detail where all the money would go. It has confirmed its plan to fund the grants for families to improve home insulation will now only cover 5 million homes over 5 years, instead of 19 million homes over a decade. The funding allocated for this will be £13.2 billion over 5 years, around double the amount currently committed by the government, but less than Labour had planned. Pledges that remain unchanged include £1.8 billion for 9 renewable-ready ports. Also staying in is a pledge to spend £2 billion on 8 battery factories and £3 billion on clean steel, figures that include assumed government spending. A pledge to spend £500 million a year on grants for companies bringing green jobs also remains, but the party has specified it won't start until 2026. The party had never specified how much it would spend on GB Energy, the publicly owned clean generation company it wants to set up. It has now confirmed this will be an initial £8.3 billion over 5 years, including £3.3 billion for councils and community groups to become owners of local power. Okay, we've just finished the reading of that news article. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'd like to emphasize that this is a really effective way to improve your vocabulary, your grammar, your pronunciation, and bring your vocabulary to more than 5,000 words or even more. It's really effective because at the same time you're learning about an updated subject with politics that's happening in the UK, and it's a good quality English because it's from BBC, of course, BBC News, British Broadcasting Corporation, and you can see that it is possible to understand British English, improving uh, improving your pronunciation, and so you can also increase your vocabulary, learn grammar, all inside a context. You're not learning words, isolated words or phrases, but you're learning through a news article. So you learn grammar, pronunciation, alliteration, assimilation, intrusive ER, all those things that are required to understand English the way it's spoken in that case. That's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed that video. Please subscribe to the channel and share the content so we can help English learners all over the world to improve their English and go to the next level. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please subscribe and share the content. Cheers.